1v9ing in League of Legends is becoming more and more difficult, the better players are becoming, the more knowledge they have, but at the end of the day, there are some champions that are just suited for 1v9ing more than others. So in today's video, guys, we're going to get into 3 champions for each role who are just insane at taking over games by themselves. But just before we do get into the video, one thing you guys have to do before you get into your next game is to download the POROFESSOR app linked in the description, because it allows you to quickly import the best rune page used from the best players in the world on the champion you're picking. You don't have to make the rune page, just one click of a button and bang, you're ready to go. But that's not all, because the app also allows you to scout your opponent, and the app will give you their stats, how well they play their champion, so you can know more about your opponent than they know about themselves. And the app also gives you an in-game overlay, so you can compare your CS and your kill participation to your rank or even challenger players like Faker. And there's a reason why 3 million people have downloaded this free application, guys. It's because it works. So get around it in Season 12. Those links are in the description. Now, starting off the video, we'll talk about the best top laners to pick to 1v9. Now, the third best champion, this is Aatrox. And ever since Riot buffed Aatrox's Q, the sweet spot damage, earlier in Season 12, he's been a mainstay OP top laner, and nothing is really changing. He might have got nerfed a few patches ago, but honestly, this has changed nothing. Even by going the new Ravenous Hydra, even though it's been nerfed a few times since its release in the preseason, it's still an incredibly OP item. And then after this, building a Jack Show, even though this got nerfed just like Ravenous Hydra, it's still a very powerful build, and Aatrox, innately speaking, is a very powerful champion. We all know the drill by now that when Aatrox pops his ultimate in a teamfight, if he lands just one Q, he's going to heal all of his HP back up. Especially if you compare Aatrox with maybe an Enchantress support like a Lulu or a Yuumi, very difficult to kill. It's like all 5 champions on your team need healing reduction to be able to kill this dude. So Aatrox is the number 3 top laner to 1v9. Now, beating him to number 2, this is Fiora. And Fiora, to be honest, is just the best split pushing champion in the game right now. So if you know you're not going to win 5v5s, which maybe is what this video is about, then Fiora is the best champion to pick, because her scaling is insane, right? And because of how the meta is at the moment, there's so much HP in the game, you and your Vital and your Divine Sundra, they pop off. Also, with Grass and the Undying, it makes your laning phase even stronger than what it was before. This isn't really new tech, it's been in the game for a few patches now, but running this keystone makes your trading incredibly OP. It procs off your Vitals as well, so Fiora is number 2 on the countdown. But number 1 is the recent release champion, this being K'Sante. And honestly, probably the best all-around top laner right now. You're strong in the split push in the 1v1, but you are also very powerful in teamfights because of your amazing ultimate. It can really disrupt the enemy team kind of orientation, if you will, and just because of how good Jack Show still is, despite getting nerfed, K'Sante can really abuse this new item, because you will be getting your head into the enemy champion, so stacking its passive very quickly should be extremely achievable. And because he is a new champion, let's be honest, right, I want to sell those skins and sell the champion himself, so K'Sante is number 1. Now, heading into the jungle, the 3 best solo carry junglers, number 3 is probably the best ganker in the game, this being Elise. And for Elise at the moment, because of how the new jungle kind of is, so many people, right, are just full clearing, and as Elise, this just gives you free reign over the map for the first few minutes. You can do whatever you want. You can even gank level 2, you're probably not going to lose that much, and remember, with how the new jungle is, your jungle camps are worth less for the enemy jungler. So in terms of the counter play, and actually taking your camps while you're making plays and ganking lanes, it's actually more worth just to play a giga ganking champion like Elise. And because of the Night Harvester buffs as well not so long ago, and the Elise buffs, accompany these with a pair of Sorceress shoes, you'll one-shot anyone, land one cocoon, and anyone, I don't care how tanky they are, they're going to die. So at least number 3. Now number 2, if you want a better AP champion to carry on, this has got to be Evelynn. And the reason why Evelynn is here, well, not just because of those buffs that came in a few patches ago, the same patch as those Elise buffs, but it's really about the jungle meta, right, and how it's kind of changed. So thankfully, because Krugs now spawn little Krugs, well, the big one anyway, this means that for AoE champions, it's very easy to clear them. Evelynn is one of them. And because you really need to full clear, you're probably the only champion in the game, actually, who has to hit level 4 to actually maybe become a champion. Enemy junglers and the players playing those champions, they won't think of invading you, because they'll be doing the same thing, right? Because of this shift in jungle mentality, I guess, and I still don't think it's actually that good, Evelynn players, you can actually abuse this. And in every single elo, she's classified as at least an S tier champion, so Eve is the best AP jungle champion to 1v9 on. But who is the best AD jungle champion to 1v9 on? Well, this guy's is a ranged champion who can really get going in the early game. This is Kindred. So because of your marks and how they work, you can start snowballing very quickly on Kindred, and that's always been the case, right? So what's new now? Well, nothing is really new, but kind of like I said for Elise, lots of champions are just full clearing and locking themselves into it. That's it. They just AFK farm. As Kindred, that gives you so much opportunity to invade, even at level 1, right? Because of your range and because you can dash over walls and stuff, you can late invade. You can run at them at level 2 after your red buff. you can put so much pressure on the map. You can level 2 gank. And once you do start snowballing and getting early kills, there is no stopping Kindred. You have amazing scaling, of course, and your ultimate is very powerful, especially in solo queue, because people just won't track its cooldown. Also, lots of people are going to headbutt you, and your ultimate, it's even more valuable in that environment. So Kindred is the best jungle champion to 1v9 on in this pre-season. Now moving down to the mid lane here, the third best mid laner to 1v9 on, this is Vex. Now one of the big reasons I love Vex, even if she did get buffed right a few passes ago, so your Q's cooldown down to 4 seconds at rank 5, and the AP ratio in this, they certainly helped, but the big reason why Vex is so OP in solo queue is because of your ultimate, the Shadow Surge. You can catch out enemy champions who make mistakes, and guess what? These players in lower elos are making mistakes all the time. And because of how your passive works, as long as you have this stacked, but when you actually go in, land your ultimate, W instantly, multiple enemy champions, especially in teamfights, right, are going to get feared, and you can just blow them up, especially if you have a bit of backup from your teammates. Vex as well has pretty much everything going for her in terms of wave clear, poke, damage, one-shot potential. You are a little susceptible to getting ganked because you don't actually have a dash, right? So you do have to be a little bit careful in the laning phase. Be precise with your positioning, ward, and play towards your vision so you know the enemy jungler is not there, and you should be good to go. So Vex number 3. Now number 2, the best AD mid laner, and lots of you are probably thinking this is going to be Zed. I haven't put Zed here because, well, his skill signal is very high, and in terms of win rates, this champion is actually just performing better. This is Akshan. Akshan in the mid lane, if you guys have actually played against Akshan, you know how frustrating it is, right? He's very good at level 1 because of his push, right? Especially if he starts Q, and his passive is 2 hits. And also, once he does actually start shoving, he can then roam with his W. As long as he stays close to structure, he will be invisible, and it puts a lot of pressure on the map. Zed doesn't really have this until level 6, so you have to be very careful of Akshan as soon as the game really begins. And because of all the HP in the game, if you go Bork and then Kraken Slayer, you have so much HP shred, it's very difficult for even tanky champions to get near an Akshan. So he is number 2, and a bit like Vex, because of your heroic swing, you can catch out enemy champions as soon as they make a mistake. So a very punishing champion, and that's the same for number 1 as well. The best mid laner guys to solo carry games on, it's got to be Kassadin. I don't really think there can be any dispute here because of the recent buffs to Roa and to Kassadin himself. He's number 1. In the majority of elos as well, people are just not going to punish you, so during the early laning phase, this should be the most difficult time for you. But players just have a really bad mindset playing mid lane. They'd rather just handshake the lane and scale themselves, but Kassadin outscales everyone. So as long as you say yes well, and that's pretty much all you have to do, it shouldn't be that difficult as a melee champion, you get to the mid to late game for free. By that point, the game is already done and dusted, because you've got CS per minute, right? And because of your amazing mobility in the mid to late game, and at this point, hopefully your jungler is giving you blue buffs, you can catch out enemy champions farming side lanes, you can catch out the enemy AD carry or support going toward an objective. You have so much pressure on the map at that point, it should really be easy to take over games, so Kassadin is the number 1 mid laner to pick to 1v9. Now moving down to the bot lane here, the 3 best AD carries to 1v9 on, and this role, let's be honest, you might need your teammates a little bit more, because if you're playing a champion like Zeri, who is number 3, you probably do want to pair Zeri with Lulu or a Yuumi, right, who can actually buff your attack speed. So this one might be a little bit conditional, but the facts are these. Zeri, since the changes a couple of patches ago, well, her win rate in Platinum and above is now above 50%, and she's classified as an S tier champion. In higher elos, in Master and above, and Challenger, she is an S plus tier champion, and honestly, if Pro Play was going around at the moment, I'm sure we would see Zeri with Lulu and Yuumi picked in the bot lane. So if you guys can master this champion, and again, check out our website for all those videos and all those tips you need, she is certainly worthy of including in this countdown. Now moving to number 2. This is Lucian. Now you might be thinking I've got to play Lucian with Nami, but you really don't have to. You can pair Lucian with another shielding support, right? Because it procs his vigilance passive, yeah? So you can pair him with maybe a Janna or a Karma, maybe a Lulu as well. Lots of people think you need like an engaged support on Lucian. Honestly, you really don't. It's actually better to play him with an Enchantress, and the stats prove it. He just has higher win rates with these champions. So Lucian is number 2. Kind of like the mid laners, because Lucian has mobility right in his dash, and once you get Gale Force, you can punish enemy champions when they move too close, right? Instantly. And I think this is a big theme throughout this video and throughout the roles here. So Lucian number 2. Now number 1, a champion who doesn't have a dash, but he actually has probably the most DPS out of all the AD carries, particularly early on. This is Draven. Very strong during the laning phase, right? Maybe your only counter, I guess, is Samira. So I highly recommend banning her if you're going to play Draven, because she can stop your axes and also block your E and ultimate. So lots of your damage is just going to go missing against that champion. But for every single other champion, Draven, you can easily win lane against, because of your adoration stacks, and if you're running Treasure Hunter, you have such such high snowballing potential, and because your early game is so strong with your Q, especially if you've got 2 axes going, you should be able to pick up kills and dominate the early laning phase and get to the mid to late game super far ahead of everyone else. So Draven, the number 1 AD carry to hard carry on. Now moving down to the support role, we have 2 roamers here, but at number 3 on the count, and if you want to play someone who's very strong in lane and should be able to dominate the first 10 to 15 minutes, this is the Donger Heimerdinger. So the reason Heimerdinger is here, well, it's kind of been recent technology, right? Because the Donger is so good in the early game because of his towers, if you can set these up at level 1, so make sure if you're playing the Donger, get to lane, set your towers up. You're all about getting priority, you're all about pressuring the enemy champions, and you're also all about playing fog. If you can set up your turrets in a brush and an enemy champion phase checks them, even if it's the enemy jungler or the support who's trying to ward the dragon area, if you're in that brush and you land your E into your towers, into your W, you will honestly one-shot them. It's a very obnoxious way of playing the game, I understand that, but it's extremely effective, and he has amazing win rates in the majority of elos, so the Donger is number 3. Now moving to number 2, if you want to roam around the map, especially if your AD carry starts running it down, Bard is the next best champion. And we all know how good Bard is, right? His portal, his ultimate can be very powerful, his Q as well, just make sure you're using this at the right time. Lots of new Bard players might try to throw their Q out of max range. Just remember, if you have your passive stacks or a few meeps under your belt, your auto attack will slow the enemy champions, so get close to them before you use your Q. But even during the laning phase, Bard can be threatening, right? Especially if the enemy bot lane is immobile. So if you do see a lot of immobile enemy champions, so the enemy bot lane might have champions like Ashe, right? Or they might have Karma, just some sort of enchantress, because pretty much none of them have a dash in their kit, but also mid laners, right? Like Syndra, like Victor, none of these have dashes as well. So you can easily pick people off and be very effective even if your AD carry starts at int. And another support just like that, this is Pyke. But Pyke packs a lot more power during the laning phase, because if you can land your Q, you're probably going to one-shot people, maybe even without your AD carry. The pressure is kind of insane with this champion, so Pyke is the number 1 support to 1v9 on. I'm sure if you've played against a Pyke, we all know how frustrating this can be. So those are the best 1v9 insane solo carry champions, guys, for each role in this preseason. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like down below. Any questions, leave them in the comment section. And until our next daily season 13 upload, this has been Peace.